guys, welcome to Interior Insights. I'm Jane and we are standing in Paris in the heart of architecture and design. And today we are going to look at an incredible 180 square meter apartment that blends the Haussmannian architecture with the Napoleon style. If you like designs that are filled with layers and layers of history and that are just absolutely magnificent, this video is for you. If you haven't subscribed yet, go subscribe right now. And now, let's go inside. And of course, we have our own Instagram where we post behind the scenes content and just more daily updates, so you can also find us there. The building itself stems from the Haussmann period and was built in 1920. So the entire structure of the building exactly comes from this period. And we have what is very typical for the Haussmannian buildings, a three-part reception room, which is basically three rooms that are lined up after each other and that you can pass through by doors, and they are like the very representative and prestigious aspect of this apartment. Around 17 years ago, the couple who lives here today with their kids bought this apartment and has lived here ever since. As soon as you come in, we enter the hallway and you can see that this is again a very formal area from which you can go into all of the different rooms. And a detail that I love is that we have this checkered black and white marble floor, because it just adds such a graphic element to the design, and it's very typical for these Parisian apartments. The walls are clad with a stuc technique that comes from the 1920s, and it is a very typical detail of Napoleon architecture, and it's supposed to mimic marble because back in the times it was cheaper to make this rather than to clad all of the walls in marble. But actually today it's a very difficult and very expensive technique that basically nobody knows how to do. So if anything would happen to these walls, you wouldn't be able to restore them, but you would in fact have to go for proper marble, because these days marble is much cheaper than this very expensive and difficult technique that we have on the walls. The color palette of the hallway and also of the rest of the apartment kind of reminds me of almost an oasis, because you have this very warm sandy brown color of the walls, and in front of them we have all of these bright green plants that just lighten up the space, and it gives off a very tropical flair and ambience. I also feel like whenever I get to visit a new apartment and just immerse myself in a new story of a building and its architecture, I just learn so much, and I've collected these different tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. And so I've created a small free guide. If you're interested, you can scan the QR code or find it later in the description. So I hope it serves as some inspiration for you. Now, this is the living room, and this is still the living room and the center of the home today. And in fact, when this building was built in 1920, when still the first family who owned this apartment, this was the first of the three reception rooms. And actually, you probably won't believe it, but the first woman who ever took part in the 80 du Mans in the race, this used to be her apartment, and she used to own the entire building. And this is exactly why this apartment is especially exquisite. This area used to be the dining room. Today it is the living room. And the woman used to park her Bugatti right in front in her little garage at the entrance of the house. What makes this apartment so interesting is that you have the historical structure of the apartment that comes from the Haussmann period, but the lady that took place in the 80 du Mans was a big fan of the Napoleon architecture and style. So you have a lot of mixes of different inspirations. And all of the wallpaper that you can see here has actually been hand painted over 100 years ago. And all of the green panels are still original, as well as the mirrors that are embedded inside the handles. And it feels like you're walking inside a museum. The marqueterie parquet floors that consists of a lot of different places of wood and are also a very expensive and difficult technique actually used to be in another palace, and then they were hand cut and inserted into this building. So they are even older than the 1920s. They come from the 18th century. And a very interesting fact, I believe my favorite actually, is that in the center of the parquet, we have a little bell, and above this bell is where the dining table used to be. And whenever the family was finished eating, you would secretly press the bell and then the staff would bring in the next course. And I love it whenever you don't hide the history and the architecture of this place, but just keep it there, because this is just a very unique detail. As for the furniture, most of the items that we can find in this apartment have been found in vintage shops and sourced all over the country, and even further than that. Over here we have 2 black leather chaises-longue, and I also love the glass table that literally consists of a slab of glass placed on top of different books. And this again just gives this luxurious and absolutely prestige-filled apartment a very laid-back and relaxed atmosphere. Like in any proper Haussmannian house, we have a large window from floor to ceiling that is in the center of the room, and it just lets the light and the outsides flood inside. And we have 2 cream drapes that are draped on both sides, and they again just accentuate the heritage and the ceiling height. And of course we have a gigantic marble fireplace that just again speaks of the luxurious history of this place. Now, because today you don't need 3 living rooms after each other anymore, this room stayed and remained the living room. And through this door you used to go into your second living room. But today it has been turned into a bedroom to just better suit the needs of the family. And let's go have a look. This is the first bedroom that used to be another living room. You can again see that we are just inside the Parisian dream. You have this kind of lived-in vintage luxury ambience that isn't too posh, but that just feels like it's been here forever. The walls are kept in this very soft creamy color, and we have very rich ornament paneling on both sides that is partially even embedded with mirrors. And it just feels like the room of a princess who used to live here. And I feel like in apartments like these, you can just get lost in the details and also in the story of the place, and you can just start to fantasize about what used to happen in this room and who used to live in it. And when the family moved in here 17 years ago, they really tried to keep the history of the place alive, to not modernize it too much, to just really respect the heritage of this unique apartment. Through the hallway and a secret door, we get into the second bedroom. And this used to be the third and the end of the 3 representative living rooms. And this room is actually the heart of the home. It is a round oval room. And if you take a look at the door that I just came through, you can see that it actually is in fact a secret door that used to not really be used. This door used to be just for the staff because it is much lower. I can just about get through, but not everybody can. And this is actually used to be the proper door where the people used to come in and spend time in this room. This bedroom is also through and through from the Napoleon-era, where it's very typical to have these oval rooms. And you have a very rich classical structure of the room and also of the apartment, paired with very minimalistic furniture. So you have this very strong contrast, and the backdrop of everything is this oval room that just creates exactly the right amount of drama and tension. And on the walls we have Corinthian-inspired classical columns that frame the entire walls and give the walls their own sense of repetition. And they are also painted in this olive green and gold accents, and you just feel like you're in a palace, or like you just woke up in a dream. And what I love so much about this room is that it's really just dedicated to one thing, and that is that it's round. We have a sunburst motif on the floor that just basically creates the shape of a sun in the parquet, which is also a very difficult technique to make, and it underlines the round shape. And we don't have too much information in the room, but this room really just has a very clear vision and stays true to what it does best, and that is its shape. Like in any room in this apartment, the windows can be opened and you can go outside and enjoy your little Juliet balcony and drink a cup of coffee in the morning, or just go outside for a quick breath of fresh air as soon as you've woken up. You're in Paris. If we follow the way of the corridor, we are led into the third of the 3 bedrooms, and this is the master bedroom. You can see that here we have much more space, and this actually also used to be the former bedroom. So this space was never intended to be super representative of your family. So it is much more relaxed, but of course we still have a lot of very precious and delicate molding. The entire space still adheres to the Haussmannian style, and that is that you have a very clear room layout that consists of symmetry and cohesion, and you just have this very overall classical design. The bed is tucked into a natural niche of the architecture of the building, and you have doors to both sides. One door to enter, and behind the second one there is a closet hiding. Here you can see that the parquet is also much simpler. It's just a regular wooden floor. We have very large and tall windows that lead out into the balcony. And another aspect that really underlines the symmetry and just satisfying harmony and balance of the space is that to both sides we have mirrors that create this infinity loop. And of course we have a very gorgeous historic fireplace that is made entirely from black marble. You can see how properly the marble has been carved out. And to create a very scenic feeling inside the bedroom, we have large plants placed here and there that just add some vibrancy and life to the place. Plants are always a great thing to put in your bedroom because they create a very nice atmosphere and they freshen up the air. And if you just take a look at this door, you can see the crazy attention to detail in the paneling and just how much love and effort was poured into every single square inch of this apartment. Now we will go inside the ensuite bathroom. The ensuite bathroom is accessible from 2 doors from both sides of the bedrooms, so they're both sharing this bathroom, and it is one of the few spaces in the apartment that has been completely redone. My favorite piece is definitely this cast iron freestanding bathtub. I can only imagine how heavy it is because it did not fit inside the lift and 6 people had to carry it up onto the 6th floor. And that is quite a challenge, I can imagine. And again, we have a beautiful checkered black and white floor that was inspired from the hallway that I showed you before. And another interesting thing, I think, which just shows you that sometimes you should just trust your instinct, is when they bought this bathtub, they originally wanted to paint it another color because they didn't really like this mustard color. But as soon as they placed it inside, they were like, wow, this just adds a touch and a pinch of color inside this otherly minimal bathroom. And then they also found this yellow chair. And this is just a series of unexpected events that you could call that just create and tell the story of this bathroom. Now we come back into the entryway, and now we looked at the part where formerly, when this apartment was built in 1920, the family had their representative living rooms as well as where they actually lived and slept. Through all the doors where the owners used to go and live in this apartment have very high door frames, and all of the doors where formerly the staff and maids of this apartment used to go to, those entryways are much lower because that's only where the staff used to go to, such as this one. And now we will go through the more narrow hallway, and look at the kitchen today that used to be the staff's area. So this entire area used to only belong to the staff, and the people who lived here didn't really go here. And you can also see that here we have a very narrow hallway that also is round and arched, and that's very untypical. And over here you can see also that the hallway has a lot of extra storage area where you can hide away all of your things. And now we come into the kitchen, and this is another incredible piece of architecture where you can just read the history of this place by the floor. So the kitchen always used to be here, but now of course it is the kitchen where the family cooks and has their meals. Before it used to be the staff kitchen where they would prepare the food and then bring it into the dining room. And on the floor we again have the checkered tiles and a modern black kitchen with a wooden countertop that just suits your everyday needs. But on the floor we can actually see that the kitchen only used to go until here, and this part actually used to be also a room where the staff used to live. And you can even see where the room ended, and that the hallway used to extend and be very narrow and quite a strange space. But around 10 years the family decided to remodel it and to get rid of this room and to just turn this into a proper dining area and open kitchen. In the kitchen you can see that there aren't many historic details because this place was meant for the staff, and the prestigious families who lived here never really came here. And you can see that today we have vintage chairs and a much more overall modern design language than the rest of the room. And I love this little man over here. He adds a bright red accent, and sculptures are always a great way to add a fun and unexpected twist to any place. And of course, even though the space feels much more laid back compared to the rooms that we previously saw, it's still a gorgeous, typical Parisian kitchen with your cast iron stove that has very cool handles, and everything just reminds you of the city. The kitchen is filled with even more vintage items, such as a very old scale where you can place things to even them out, or antique vintage mirrors that are hung on the walls. And when you look outside, you can just see your own building from the other side and a little view of Paris. If you want to see more videos with me and my little friend, you should check out this one right here. Thank you very much, and go and subscribe to this channel.